What's up, guys? My name is Stephen Guadani with 5 Tool Sports Science right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We got a good video coming in for you guys today. We're going to be talking about lower body power, lean mass, and pitching velocity, how power and size scale across levels of baseball. All right, so we are going to be basing this off of a study. The guy's name was King. I got to look up the name of the study again. But anyways, they were looking at like 33 Division I baseball players from Georgia. And what they found was peak power output from lower body is a key predictor of pitching velocity, okay? Athletes who can produce more absolute power are likely to have higher pitching velocities. Greater absolute power increases the ceiling for ball velocity when mechanics are efficient, okay? So, why jump height alone is insufficient. So I think a lot of the times, like we can talk about like improving an athlete's vertical jump, but just in understanding vertical jump alone, in the study, they weren't finding any correlation with counter movement jump and pitching velocity. And why that is jump height alone or relative power. So relative power being like, they accounted for body weight in terms of like, so say you're a smaller guy, but you're producing 2 times your body weight and force or something like that. That's kind of like an example of relative power. It's taking into account your body rate. But what they were finding was that wasn't predictive of pitching velocity. Okay, so the research shows no significant correlation between jump height by itself and throwing speed. Jump height is influenced by technique, body weight, and elasticity, but peak power in watts accounts for both mass and force production, making it a better metric. Okay, so the peak power in watts is going to be, I like to use something called the Harmon formula, which we're going to go over a little bit in a second, but that's essentially taking your jump height and your body mass to go through a calculation to calculate your peak power in watts. And when you play that out, you can start to see a correlation between levels of play, okay? So peak power outputs across levels of play, like we were just talking about. High school athletes produce the lowest absolute peak power outputs because they tend to have the smaller body masses and they cannot, jump as high, run as fast, etc. Peak power increases substantially from the high school to the college levels, and then from the college levels to the pro levels. But rookie ball represents a major jump in absolute power compared to college levels. But the professional level continues to increase power, but at a much slower rate. So once you've reached like the professional levels, your bottleneck probably isn't so much the raw power output. The bottleneck is probably more in getting better at your skill of sport, working on becoming a better pitcher, throwing strikes, being able to strike guys out, being able to get guys to induce soft contact, not walking people. Just becoming a good pitcher is going to be the more of a determinant of your success at those higher levels. All right, so peak power in watts by level. Again, this is talking about the Harmon formula here. 7,500 watts of power at the high school level, 8,800 watts of power at NAIA. NCAA was 9,400 watts. Rookie ball, 11,000 watts. Single A to double A, 1,100 to 11,300. AAA, 11,600, and the MLB, 11,000 to 12,000 watts of power. So once you've reached the professional level, it's like when we talk about, okay, the pyramid of here's all your youth players, here's all of your high school guys, here's all of your college guys, and here's all your pro guys. The pyramid gets smaller. The population of people gets smaller towards the top. So from natural selection, by the time you're reaching the pro ball level, just by making that level, the scouts have already seen that you can move and play like a professional baseball player. So adding more power in the professional level probably isn't going to move the needle for you as much as like, okay, emphasizing, adding pitch to your pitch design and arsenal, limiting your walks, inducing soft contact, striking people out, things that are actually going to map towards being a successful pitcher on the mound. That's where the professional people need to rank, okay? Now, for the high school and the college level players, you might not be producing power at the level that these guys are. So like even that you could add like a youth level. The youth level to the high school level is probably the biggest increase in power just because you're a little kid. You're small, you can't produce force, you're not strong. All of a sudden you hit puberty, you have testosterone throwing through your body. Hopefully you're doing some sort of like athletic development at a young age. Okay, and then you start to reach high school and all of a sudden you're a little bit stronger, you're a little bit bigger, you're a little bit faster, and you're producing more power. Then from that high school to the college level, there's another jump, okay? So peak power outputs is very predictive of level of play. Next thing. Okay, so the taper effect of peak power at higher levels. So the largest gains in peak power occur from high school through rookie ball, all right, which is what we were just looking at. That's really your time frame of, you know, trying to develop a lot of power in your playing career. From your high school to college years, that's 8 years, you know. 8 years of training to, you know, build more lean body mass, build more explosive power, build more rotational power, you know, develop all of the athleticism and power requirements needed to play at the next level, okay? At higher levels, most athletes already possess sufficient absolute power. Like, again, what we're talking about, those professional guys, they already have the good absolute power. Velocity differences at elite levels are driven more by mechanics, timing, rate of force development, RSI, and efficiency rather than raw power alone. If you watch some of our other videos where we're talking about, I think it's actually the next video that we're going to shoot, but we're talking about just the rate of force development and RSI metrics when it comes to jumps is actually showing more of a correlation to pitching velocity than just the raw power alone, okay? But the raw power alone for the lower levels, from the youth to the high school to the college, you have to build that raw power to be able to put yourself into the conversations of these elite level guys, okay? But once you're at the elite levels, you're going to need to focus more on your mechanical efficiency, the timing of those movements, okay? And just becoming a better pitcher overall through pitch design, etc. So key takeaways on power development. Peak power is a major limiter at lower levels of play. Once a threshold of power is reached, returns diminish, all right? Power becomes a prerequisite rather than the differentiator at elite levels. So lean body mass across levels of play. So here's a chart. You can't really see it over here, but there's high school. High school is actually the lowest. Then you got NCAA, NCAA, rookie ball, single A, double A, triple A, all the way up. So there's a pretty step-by-step jump in lean body mass, all right? So lean body mass steadily increases at each competitive level. Size and strength provide the foundation for higher power outputs, okay? So again, looking at the peak power in watts, it's taking into account your jump height and then combining that with your body mass. So it's not just looking at the jump height alone, and that's actually much more predictive than just looking at the jump height. So larger athletes can generate and tolerate higher forces throughout the delivery. Lean body mass by level, again, we just kind of looked at that. High school, 145, all the way up to the MLB. Nutrition's role in lean body mass and power production. This to me is the biggest limiting factor. And I think a lot of people, especially at that like youth, high school, definitely in the high school level, you would probably benefit most, and I'll probably get myself in some trouble here, from getting someone to provide a meal service for you to where they're preparing the food for you to eat. Because what ends up happening is most guys, like you can tell everybody till you're blue in the face, hey man, you got to be eating more. You have to know your macronutrients. You have to come up with a plan. You can help them come up with the plan. High school athletes suck at doing this. This is the biggest limiting factor for them of just building more lean body mass, just building more muscle mass to get them to a higher level of play, to get them to throw the baseball harder. I can't tell you how many guys I have that are really good athletes, like they're jumping 30 plus inches, you know, but they weigh 137 pounds. You know, they're throwing low 80s and they're like, I want to throw harder. And it's like, brother, everything that we do, nothing will move the needle as much as you just eating. As you just, you know, picking up a fork is what people say. And it's really true. So I think this is the biggest limiting factor for guys is just eating. And I think a lot of parents, if they just went like, I'm going to hire somebody that is going to cook all of the meals for the kid instead of, you know, paying for pitching lessons or something like that, you are going to have far better results than just going out and doing traditional baseball training. or going and paying for some travel team. If you want them to play at the high school or collegiate level, you might get better results of just getting them in a strength and conditioning program and paying for them to have the food readily available for them to actually eat and build lean muscle mass. I'm telling you, it's crazy, okay? So again, this is coming back to just mastering the basics, and high school guys really suck at actually mastering the basics. So the lean body mass and the nutrition is going to support your strength, your power, your durability, and recovery, okay? Individual athlete training recommendations. So assess your current peak power using jumps or force plate testing. So what you do with that individualization is you're going to start to find lighter athletes with low power output should prioritize hypertrophy and nutrition. So just exactly what we're talking about. Typically those dudes in the high school levels, if you're the lighter guy, bro, just prioritize hypertrophy in your strength and conditioning, your max strength outputs, and then sprinkle in some of your, explosive stuff just to keep that moving along in terms of plyometrics, ballistic exercises, obviously still working on the skill of throwing a baseball, which is just going to be like pitching and med balls, et cetera, okay? But you need to prioritize that, specifically the hypertrophy and nutrition. Heavier athletes with lower explosiveness should emphasize plyometrics and power training. So that other end of the curve of guys that do have the size, you're typically just not fast enough and explosive enough. Now, again, we're going through a lot of videos here where we're talking about the time constraint of throwing from once you're pitching. By the time that front foot hits the ground, you have 0.145 seconds to produce force onto the baseball. That's a small time constraint. That's a small little window for you to create force and power, okay? So you might need to emphasize more of the eccentric components, like the eccentric components of slamming on the brake so you can decelerate your front leg better. You might need to improve the acceleration of your trunk, the total force output of rotational power, but also the acceleration of how quickly you can do that, and then looking at the arm strength levels as well, building the strength and the power in the arm. So most athletes are going to end up needing a blend of strength, hypertrophy, and explosive work. Again, that just kind of comes to the individualization and knowing where you're at, where your deficiencies are, and what you need to emphasize, okay? That's where hiring a good coach can help you. Oh, that's all of them. So I hope that helps you guys. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment. If you have any ideas for me that you would like me to make a video on, go ahead and leave that in the comments as well. And I hope it helps, guys. Catch you on the next one.